हेलो दोस्तों, ये मेरे सोशलॉजी के नोट्स हैं। मैं आपको दिखाना चाहता हूँ कि मैंने सोशलॉजी के नोट्स कैसे बनाए थे और वैल्यू एडिशन इस नोट में कैसे की थी और आप इसको कैसे रिवाइज कर सकते हो। ये पेपर 2 का फर्स्ट चैप्टर है इंडोलॉजी का, जिसमें ये फर्स्ट चैप्टर है। हमारा जो पहला सेक्शन है पेपर 2 का, जिसमें स्टडी ऑफ इंडियन सोसाइटी के बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं और उसमें फिर 3 अप्रोचेस के बारे में पढ़ते हैं। पहला इंडोलॉजी, देन स्ट्रक्चरल फंक्शनलिज्म एंड देन मार्क्सिस्ट सोशियोलॉजी बाय ए.आर. देसाई। तो ये जो नोट्स है एक कलरफुल और बहुत भरी हुई लग रही है। तो इसका एक रीज़न ये है कि मैंने मेरे नोट्स को कभी चेंज नहीं किया। मैंने मेरे नोट्स को वही रखा और उसमें जो भी मुझे चीज़ें नई मिलती गई, जो मुझे एग्जांपल्स मिलते गए, जो मुझे नए थिंकर्स मिलते गए, कुछ पॉइंट्स मिलते गए, तो उन पॉइंट्स को मैंने इसमें ऐड किया है। तो एग्जांपल के तौर पे मैं आपको बता सकता हूँ कि मैं इस नोट को कैसे रिवाइज़ करता था। फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल, लेट्स से दिस इज़ first section. There are 3 sections in paper 2, we know. In first section, perspectives on the study of Indian society. This is the basic evolution. So I have written about Indian society. So due to peculiar features of, because they can talk about or they can ask a question why there were different perspectives on the study of Indian society, and why they studied Indian society, though it was ideological approach, structural functionalist approach, or Marxist perspective, why they studied Indian society. So one thing is that due to the peculiar feature of Indian society, like caste system, village as an identity, kinship, there was Jajmani system, joint family system. So because of such unique features, peculiar features, various sociologists, social scientists and thinkers got attracted towards our country and they studied Indian society, and that's why each one gave their own idea, their own views about Indian society. They studied through their own unique ways Indian society, and that's why there were many perspectives on the study of Indian society, and out of those perspectives 3 are very important perspectives. So Indological, structural functionalist and Marxist perspective. Now we know that there are 3 terms which are very important: sociology for India, sociology of India, and sociology in India. So these 3 points I found somewhere and I try to include these 3 points into my notes. So I have written these 3 points in one of the corner. So what is sociology of India? They gave unique description, they give unique perspective about Indian society. They had their own theories, their own principles, and they explain Indian society in their own way, and that is nothing but sociology of India, and which can be seen in the study of Gore and Louis Dumont. And what is sociology for India? So there are standards, structures, there are standard concepts, definitions, and which definitions are basically originated in Western study of sociology, and these concepts were applied to study in Indian society, and that is nothing but sociology for India. So this study was conducted by Andre Bette, A.R. Desai, M.M. Srinivas. So they applied the Western concept. So in case of M.M. Srinivas, we know that he applied structural functionalism. In case of A.R. Desai, he applied Marxism to study Indian society, or Trinitarian approach of Weber was modified and it was applied to study Indian society by Andre Bethe. So that is nothing but sociology for India. And what is sociology in India? Sociology in India is nothing but the professor or activist which did the study of sociology in India. That's nothing but the teaching of sociology as a subject in India is nothing but sociology in India. Now here I have written about evolution of the study of sociology. So very crisply I have written about this. First, what were the efforts to study Indian society earlier? First is voluntary organizations which were established in 18th and 19th century. So first was Asiatic Society of Bengal by William Jones. Then there was Bethuni Society. Then Society for Acquisition of General Knowledge. Right, William Jones was the person who translated Mahabharata into English. Right. Then the Society for Acquisition of General Knowledge, Bethuni Society. So these three societies studied Indian society. Then second effort to study Indian society was made by government machinery and administrators during British period. So they had to do the social, they had to study Indian society, and they developed the social understanding because they wanted to maintain law and order in our country. They wanted to collect revenue. So the study of society would definitely benefit them, and that's why they studied Indian society. But we know that they had orthodox view of Indian society. So they considered village as a self-sufficient and closed entity. They believed that our social structure was caste-based. We had primitive tribal communities. This view is also called the dominant view, right? This view is also called a pure book view. And there were scientists which gave this orthodox view. So you can talk about Metcalfe and other social scientists. Then further there was University of Bengal, Mumbai and Calcutta, Bengal, Madras and Calcutta in 1857. Department of Census was established, ethnic surveys was carried out. This also studied Indian society. After 1850, ethnographists, industry experts, academic theologians and Christian missionaries, they studied Indian society because they were also engaged in spreading the educations, and they also were interested in improving the administrative framework. So because of that, they had to study Indian society. After that, many Indians studied Indian society because there were various peculiar features like joint family system, Jajmani system, customary laws, Panchayat Raj. And after this orthodox view, which was pure book view, this came to be known as book view, and there was very less field studies. After this, we know that there were various sociologists which emerged in India. There were various social scientists who established sociology as the discipline in India, and how it led to the emergence of sociology in India. In 1919, University of Bombay, the sociology department was introduced, and later it was introduced in Calcutta and Lucknow. The Patrick Geddes and Gure were responsible for introduction of sociology in Bombay. Gure is also called father of Indian sociology or father of Indology. Then R.K. Mukherjee and D.P. Mukherjee. R.K. Mukherjee talked about empirical social study, synthesis of Indian and Western analysis, where D.P. Mukherjee talked about the living tradition, how living tradition includes past plus continuity. These past plus continuity are nothing but the aspects of the society. While he studied Indian society, he talked about past plus continuity, and he related this thing with social change. Then we know that he also studied Marxism. These two people, or these two sociologists, R.K. Mukherjee and D.P. Mukherjee, established a department of sociology in Lucknow. D.P. Mukherjee also talked about, and he there is influence of Marxism in his study. He talked about Prem and Anubhava and not the Buddhi Vichar, which are the causes of the change. Then A.R. Vadia, responsible for establishing sociology study in Mysore. L.K. Anandkrishnan Iyer was one of the very first who did study of Indian society through his ethnographic survey. Sarat Chandra Ray did this through tribal society and laws and customs. Then Yogendra Singh did study Indian society with various different analysis. For example, he talked about philosophical approach of Lucknow School, or cultural approach of M.N. Srinivas, structural approach of F.G. Ballet, dialectical approach of A.R. Desai. Then we know that three important social scientists we study. One is Ghure, Indology, M.N. Srinivas, structural functionalism, and A.R. Desai is Marxism. Now I have added points from NCRT, sociology NCRTs. I have added points from Nitin Sangwan book, and the points which I could get from various test series, and I added these points into the same notes, into the same page, and I used to revise these again and again. Here you can also have a look at this. Here starts the Indology. So I have written definition of Indology, which is nothing but systematic study of Indian society and culture. So, and what it includes religious text like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Vedas, Upanishads, historical text like Kautilya's Arthashastra, historical text and document, travelogues which were written by Megasthenes and Fahan, then architectural or archaeological evidences and literary works. So these are all aspects of Indology, that is systematic study of Indian society and culture through these. Now I have written thinkers' name here: Iravati Karve, T.N. Madan, J.S. Ghure. J.S. Ghure is also called the father of Indian sociology. He is also father of Indian Indology. So these thinkers have talked about Indology. So you can quote these three thinkers whenever you write answer on Indology. Now here I have written LBIC, nothing but language, belief, ideas and customs. So Indology consists of LBIC, that is language, belief and ideas and customs. Now I have drawn this diagram. These are nothing but the characteristics of Indology. First is Indian society is unique, so concept and theories must be unique to understand Indian society. That is the first proposition of Indology. So Ghure has talked about Indian society as a Hindu tradition, to understand Indian society or to understand Hindu society. Second proposition is it talks about understanding Indian society and not suggesting solution to Indian society. Third, it considers understanding Indian society as a continuity from the past and through identification of historical moorings. And last is it does not use field view, but it talks about broad and ideal typical view, which is nothing but a book view. So these are the characteristics of Indology. Then this is the classification of Indology. So the classical Indology, which was before 1920, which was called pure book view, where the Western scholars and the British officials studied Indian society and they gave their own view. There were voluntary organization, and the Max Muller's book called Sacred Books of the East, which also talked about Indian society and they had their they had their peculiar view of Indian society, like Indian society considered self-sufficient and closed society, caste and the tribal aspects. Then they considered Indian society isolated and the static. So this was orthodox view. Then they characterized Indian society as a traditional society. Then the religion as a guide to social relations and how the society was backward and feudal characteristics. So these are some of the aspects of the Indian society talked by the pure book view. Then there is so first is classical Indology, second is modern Indology, and in modern Indology you find the study of Ghure, D.P. Mukherjee, R.K. Mukherjee, etc. Then what are the criticism of Indology? So I have written about four views. First is there is study of different texts, and these different texts are contradictory to each other. So there is a lot of contradiction among the text, among the information. So we can say Indology is having a lot of subjectivity, and so there are reliability issues and objectivity issues. Then you can talk about M.M. Srinivas, who gave field view, and he talked through various concepts like dominant caste, Sanskritization, caste class nexus, and essentially you can say book view and field view both are opposite view. So field view gave the different picture, and it studied the different aspects of Indian society, and so field view was actually made more popular. So this is one of the criticism. Then book view is given by Indology, and where the authenticity is questionable. And the last is why Indology is criticized, because both Indian thinkers and Western thinkers have talked about Indology or gave Indological studies, but Western thinkers were biased towards colonial interest, while Indian scholars were biased towards nationalist interest. So that also a kind of subjectivity. So there is the lacking of objectivity here. Now in second page, what I have done is I have written about three thinkers, and I have written their different concepts and criticisms in only single page, and I need not to look at other notes. So whenever I have to read, I will read this page only about M.N. Srinivas. So here it is M.N. Srinivas, J.S. Gore and A.R. Desai. And in the last portion you will observe that I have written the criticism of their study, and I have made very short notes. Here first, M.N. Srinivas talks about structural functionalism. He uses field view, and in structural functionalism is a concept given by Radcliffe Brown and Malinowski, and field view is given by Evans Pritchett. It is a macro sociological generalization of micro approach. First point, it studies working of social institutions and patterns of relationship between these social institutions. Here I have talked about R and S among Corso, that is nothing, religion and society among Cooks. I can quote this as an example, and his study of the Remembered Village, 1978. So he has talked about ethnographic study or ethnographic account in the study of Kurgs of Mysore. So how customs, beliefs, family, religion, etc. give the solidarity, and that is what basically functionalism is all about. If you read in paper 1 functionalism, then you will understand that how functionalism helps to give order, give stability, or how it has having functional aspect for the society, right? Even he has talked about Brahminization in this chapter. Here I have written about two examples. Panikas, Kanyas, Brahmans, Baniyas, Sanskritization. So I have noted this point from NCERT. So I can quote these as example of his study in the process of Brahminization, which later came to be known as Sanskritization. And then he cited these two examples. Third point is interpretation of social phenomena in functional terms, and how M.N. Srinivas for the first time coined the term socialization, Sanskritization in his book. So religion and society among Cooks, he says lower caste Hindu emulate customs, rituals, ideals, values of twice born caste. So customs, rituals, ideals, values of twice born caste. So this is the definition of Sanskritization. So when the question is asked upon Sanskritization, you can utilize this definition from this portion. Then third point in structural functionalism is there are both aspects, structural plus cultural. And he talks about differentiation, the process of differentiation, how process of differentiation is there. He also gives, and the structural functionalism is nothing but the empirical and contextual view. It talks about here and now aspect. Then there is a comparative understanding in structural functionalism. Structural functionalism also anthropological view, and it talks about structural aspect and structural function of the society. So when there is question on structural functionalism or M.N. Srinivas understanding of Indian society, you can talk about these aspects. So first half page of this section will easily provide you enough number of points to write about structural functionalism. So you have here examples, you have here his works like Religion and Society Among Cooks or The Remembered Village. You know what is the basic theme, structural functionalism plus field view, from where his study borrows, and what are the aspects of the structural functionalism. Now here you will find lot of complex things written, but believe me, if you revise again and again and if you keep adding this point here, you won't find it very difficult. So here I have written about order and change. So what is order? So in case of Ghurre, also in case of M.N. Srinivas, you would find that order is nothing but functionality of caste, village and religion. So that's order. So the functional aspect of these caste, village and religion, etc., other aspect as well. And what is the change? Change as per M.N. Srinivas is nothing but the cultural change, and which cultural change gives the change in Indian society. So write down, I have written his work Social Change in Modern India. Okay, now here if you see, I have talked about westernization and Sanskritization. Whatever the things I have written in red letters, these are nothing but things related with westernization and Sanskritization. So here again repeated study of cooks of Mysore. Then Sanskritization is also called anticipatory socialization. And how M.N. Srinivas talks about only positional change of the society. And again Sanskritization, there is another term called desanskritization, which is talked by D.N. Majumdar, where higher caste abandons their dress or their rituals, values, foods, etc. And that is with respect to the Kashmir Pandit study. Now in Rampura he has talked about dominant caste. In Sanskritization, how the practices of dowry, education, sacred thread, all are related with Sanskritization. And if you look at westernization, you know it is about values, ideas, norms, how British influence was also there, how the cultural characteristics and institutional innovations into caste, joint family, etc., how it is related with values. So all these things are nothing but relative to westernization. So I have written keywords. So if you revise that, you will get idea what to write in westernization. Then you can talk about factors of political and economic factors and how they influence Indian society. And you can give the contradictory view of Sanskritization. For example, backward caste emulating the practices of higher caste through Sanskritization, but at the same time they want to project themselves as a backward caste in order to claim reservation. Then sometimes we find the hostile attitude of upper caste towards lower caste during the process of Sanskritization. Right. So these are the points and different perspectives. So I have written about Palar community and how they Devendra Kular Vellalar, how they tried to replace themselves by this, or they tried to engage in the process of Sanskritization. So these are points which I have mentioned, and I have written about Sanskritization, Westernization, desanskritization. Then down I have also written about secularization, and you will read about secularization in chapter 1 as well, paper 1 chapters as well. So what I have done, I have tried to write more number of keywords in this short space. So Sanskritization, secularization, modernization, Westernization, desanskritization, anticipatory socialization. So this will help you to write more number of keywords in short span and in short space. Now, so we looked at the view of M.N. Srinivas, and we also looked at his concept of order, his concept of change, his concept of Sanskritization, desanskritization. Now we will look at his view of village, idea of village. So he was against the Dumont's view, who talked about caste as the only concept to understand Indian society or village. But M.N. Srinivas, through the study of Oka, he did field studies, he did historical analysis, he looked into ethnographic account, and he had his view about dynamics and the change of Indian society. So he rejected the self-sufficient view. He said there is interdependence between the villages of Indian society. He talked about village exogamy. He rejected the idea of village being closed, and he looked at village as a microcosm, functional entity, and how it serves as a unifying identity. And I have written this diagram where at the center there is caste, and how different aspects like marriage, family, Jajmani system, etc. are linked to the caste. Then I have written in red letters caste view. I have written about family nuclearization due to industrialization and modernization. Here you can observe. Then M.N. Srinivas has talked about vertical and horizontal solidarity. So what is it? So these are the concepts which you will write into your answers. And last, I have written about the criticism of M.N. Srinivas. So being functional, so it tries to promote status quoism or status quoist theory. Then caste is having certain dysfunctional aspect, but structural functionalism looks towards caste as a functional. Then there are cultural influences on this study, and there is too much empirical or field studies. Then Yogendra Singh also criticized structural functionalism. Then sociologist Doshi has said that any tradition which is rejected by Indian constitution is not a tradition at all. Then Sujata Patel has talked about methodological ambiguities. and then Gail Umed has talked about Brahminical domination in the study. So these are some of the criticisms I have written about this theory. So this is M.N. Srinivas. Then Ghore, I have also tried to add value to this note. So that's why it is again more complex. You would able to see that you are not able to see these things very clearly, but I have revised this again and again, so I know what I have written, and this will be the same with everyone. So if you have your own notes and if you read those notes again and again, then there won't be any problem. So here Ghore eclecticism, the theoretical pluralism, and he has combined historical plus diffusionist plus descriptive approaches. Historical is nothing but context. The diffusionist approach is nothing but how Indian traditions spread to other part of the country, and how they gave the unifying effect, how they tried to bring in unity. These aspects are talked in diffusionist approach and diffusionist study. Then he has also talked about descriptiveness, descriptive nature of study with respect to Indian society. So these three keywords are there important with respect to Ghore. Here I have talked about, because whenever there are questions, if the question is based upon thinkers in the paper 2, you can utilize paper 1 thinkers to give counter argument. For example, what I have written here, I have talked about 2 thinkers. First is Marx, second is Weber. So Marx said that the arrival of British in India, which led to the capitalist form of a capitalist mode of production. But Weber has said that because of the ethic of Indian society, capitalism could not arise. So these both are contradictory views. But when you discuss Indian society, you can bring in these views and contextually you can write. Then he has talked about mechanistic solidarity. Then Hindu society tradition. So what is order as per Ghore? As per Ghore also, order of the society nothing but caste, religion, village, tribe, urbanization, continuity, etc., etc. And what is the change as per Ghore? The change aspect of the Ghore is nothing but the dynamic view. He says that how British influenced Indian society, which brought change in Hindu society. Then he has given extensive analysis of his study of caste. So he gives the theory of origin of caste by diffusionist approach, and which includes historical, comparative and integrative approaches. He says that caste originated in Gangetic region, Gangetic plains, and it spread to other part. So I have written about acculturation. So you need to study what is acculturation. You need to use this key term in your answers, but read about acculturation so that you can know that what is actually difference between acculturation and diffusionist, etc. Then he gave the features of caste. So 6 features I have written about: hierarchy, hereditary, endogamy, principle of purity and pollution, civil and religious disabilities, and division of labor. So I know this, so that's why I have written just only shortcuts, because I revise this again and again. That's why I was able to remember even if I don't write it here. So this is HSE. So hierarchy, hereditary, endogamy, principle of purity and pollution, civil and religious disabilities, and division of labor. Now here he has talked about tribe. So he has given analysis of caste and tribe. So on one side there is assimilation. He believed that the tribes are the part of Hindu society and there is assimilation in various degrees. He rejected the policy of isolation. He studied Koli tribe. Then there is a caste tribe continuum. Okay, he has written book called Scheduled Tribe, and he divided tribes into 3 types: Hinduized tribes, partially Hinduized tribe, and hill section tribes. Then how he understood nationalism, how the tribe being part of Indian society is important for nationalism, modernization, industrialization, unity, etc. And we know that there were two schools there has been two school with respect to tribal development. How the protest in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, which actually led to tribal movement, how believed or perceived cultural degradation, how they believe that their culture is different or distinctive, how they believed that there was exploitation, so they stayed away from mainstream. So there was one approach, right? And how they were defined as museums of primitive culture. And this view was criticized by Gore, right? And that's why he believed that these are part of Hindu society, and he talked about assimilation of Indian tribes into Indian society. So these are some of the views about tribes. So when the question is there, you can utilize his views. So we have different chapter in sociology on tribal, but these views of Gore you can utilize. You can mention his book called Scheduled Tribe here. Then he has also written various sociological works. Then Caste and Race in India he has also written. Now remember what he talks about modern society. So he says that there would be increasing caste consciousness. In modern society, what is happening? There has been increasing caste consciousness, caste associations are increasing, and that's why he defined this phenomena as a caste patriotism. He opposed caste system, but he said that the caste system will disappear due to urbanization and education. And so you can mention his work Caste and Race in India in 1932. So whenever you start writing answer, you can start your answer with the definition of any keyword which is mentioned in the question, along with thinker name and his work. So with respect to Gore, you can mention Caste and Race in India. Then he has given the rational and not orthodox explanation of religion. He says religion as a dynamic entity, and he didn't see religious diversity as a contradictory. And how he has linked sadhus with spiritual persons and the common people. He has written work in 1952 on Indian sadhus. Then he rejected the self-sufficient view of village. He draws his idea of understanding of village from the caste, but he actually ignored the social structures which are operating. For example, the study of M.N. Srinivas highlighted dominant caste class nexus, right? He has written, Gore has written about cities and civilization 1962, and so he rejected the pessimistic view of Louis Wirth urbanization, which talked that there will be growth of individualism when there is a rise of urbanization. Then there is a concept called rural urbanization. Gore says urban areas are cradle of innovation, and urban area and rural area are organically linked. So in this points, you came across 3 to 4 works of J.S. Gore which you can use while writing answer. So first was Scheduled Tribes, then there is Caste and Race in India, then Indian Sadhus, and then there is Cities and Civilization. Now what are the criticisms of Gore's theory? So first, it is over Hinduized view. Second, it was favorable view with respect to caste, and it did not consider dehumanizing aspect of caste. Then it ignored the qualitative changes which were brought by the colonial rule, because Gore criticized colonial rule too much. Then here the focus is only on cultural and ignored the structural implication of caste. Then I have also write about other points like Dalit sociology, how subaltern criticized, then M.N. Srinivas structural functionalism, A.R. Desai's Marxist sociology, Andre Bete, he said we should apply context to the text. Then how there is influence of Brahminical traditions, then the criticism of Romila Thapar. So all these are criticism of Gore theory. Now the last is A.R. Desai, Marxist sociology, influence of Marxist sociology, how actually Russian Revolution influence is also found on his study. He has written two works. First, Social Background of Indian Nationalism in 1946, and in 1970, Relevance of Marxist Perspective in Understanding Indian Society. So he is called Doctrinaire Marxist. Why this study was there and why also it became popular? Because post-independence planning commission was introduced, and the planning conception came under doubt because it did not yield fruits as anticipated, and that's why it was believed that there is certain deficiency in understanding or interpreting Indian society, and because of that we are not able to achieve trickle down effect, or we are not able to achieve equity within Indian society. So what are the proposition of this theory? First, historical materialism or dialectical materialism. It talked about changing economic and material conditions or activities in Indian society. Second, social structure and social institutions which are rooted in productive relationship, and how this Kathleen Go's caste class nexus study talks about. Then third is culture, how social superstructure is rooted in economic infrastructure, and that is what essentially Marxism is, right? So these studies apply to village studies, to the social, and how the socio-political setup of villages around land. It interprets the caste, religion and other aspect of the Indian society as a social superstructure, and how these social superstructure are related in economic infrastructure, like how division of labor is giving away to the Jajmani system, right? So this is the third proposition. Fourth is, it studied Indian society in terms of conflict. It visualized Indian society in terms of conflict and social institution as exploitative. So let's say be it Jajmani system or caste system or other. So it, and this view is actually opposite to the functionalist view, because functionalists believe that the institutions, social institutions which are there in the society, these institutions are functional to the people, to the society as a whole, and which essentially goes against the view of Marxist. Then there was one question which talks about capitalism in 21st century, and I found it interesting, so that's why I have written those points on these small sticky notes, and actually I sticked it here. So what is there below this page is nothing but, it has talked about capitalist mode of production, how feudalism, which led to the capitalist mode of production, how the new classes emerged, how mechanization, how commercialization, all these aspects gave way to the capitalist form of or capitalist mode of production, how the different protests which were there, how different revolts which were there, and how they were related to the capitalist form of mode of production. Then in this question, capitalism in 21st century, I have written few points like the wealth concentration, then how the poverty is still there, or how the crony capitalism is there, then different foreign companies and foreign projects, special economic zone or twin balance sheet problem. So all these actually attributed to the drawbacks of capitalism. Then here, how this concept or how this study of A.R. Desai or Marxist sociology emerged in India. So there are different phases, like 1857 revolt, and prior to that, then, so these actually aspects are nothing but Indian nationalism. So how Indian nationalism was rooted into capitalist mode of production, or how Marxist sociology studied Indian nationalism and how they interpreted it, is nothing but these are the different stages. Last stage was Kisan Sabha. Before that, how the actually bourgeoisie class funded the middle class and which actually led the nationalist movement, or after 1857 revolt, how things changed. So these are nothing but stages of the nationalism as per Marxist sociology, as per A.I. Desai study. So here we know that the nationalism was shaped by the materialistic condition as per A.R. Desai. So mode of production changed from feudal to capitalist mode of production. How the exploitations led to the unification among Indians. How the commercializations and the capitalist tendencies led to the exploitation of the masses, and how this, instead of pure socio-cultural explanation, A.R. Desai has given economic explanation or economic exploitation as a reason. How railways were started, press and post were started, though these had unintended consequences, like these things led to some of the functional aspect in the society. They made communication possible. Because of the press, our people, our freedom fighters also could propagate their thought, but these things were started to serve the colonial interest. These had some unintended consequences as well, but all these explanation is surrounding around Marxist sociology, and this is one of the study of Indian society by A.R. Desai. Then how the peasant struggle was due to because of the capitalist. Then he has talked about welfare state. So Marxist A.R. Desai has talked about welfare state. He has written the myth of welfare state, and as per him, the welfare state is nothing but which is democratic, which has mixed economy, and which is positive. So it interferes or intervenes positively into the society. And down below I have written the criticism of A.R. Desai, that is the Jajmani system and the panchayat were seen as exploitative, right? But the solidarity and integrative approach, actually how it led to the both aspect, because Jajmani system and panchayati system were seen exploitative, but these two things like Jajmani and panchayat also led to the solidarity and integration of the society. So by criticizing Jajmani and panchayat system as a whole is not valid. Then Yogendra Singh has talked about a lack of empirical reality in the study of A.R. Desai. Then there is ignorance of caste, because the caste has not been taken into explanation. Then because this A.R. Desai has given very oversimplistic view about caste. He has completely ignored, not completely ignored, but he has ignored caste in his study. Then Anthony Paul has said that A.R. Desai has blindly followed Marx and talked about too much materialistic view. This study has also ignored the role of the cultural aspect as well. So too much reliance on materialistic aspect while explaining, and you can also give views of Ghore, views of M.N. Srinivas as a criticism of A.R. Desai. So these are the notes of chapter 1 of paper 2, perspectives on the study of Indian society, in which basically Indology, M.N. Srinivas, Ghore and A.R. Desai. So I made only 1 page notes of first chapter of paper 2. In second page, things have become more complex. It's not legible to read, but I used to revise it periodically, so I would keep those things in mind. Yes, second page can be bit more clearer, bit more legible, but my purpose here to tell you is that how to make notes, how to add values in the same notes, how you can write more keywords, and how you can write optimum notes, not too much, not too less. And even if any questions comes, you can easily write based on this content. So I wanted to tell you about this because in last I prepared sociology by myself, and I just wrote a test series of other institutions, and I was able to scores easily above 270 plus. So I believe that with this preparation also you can get good marks in sociology. I hope this will help you, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.